name of the one God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Israel's religion included many laws. While Israel's religion included many concerning ritual purity or holiness, in conformity with Leviticus chapter 19, verse 2, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, is holy." There is no biblical law about washing hands before eating, but there is a requirement that priests wash their hands and feet before administering at the altar, according to Exodus chapter 30, verses 17 to 21. This was understood to include washing hands before eating holy meat from the sacrifices. The Pharisees took seriously the command of Exodus 19, verse 6, "You shall be for me a priestly kingdom and a holy nation." What this meant was that all Israelites should be as holy as priests, and that consequently all Jews should wash their hands before eating. In Mark, many see as exaggeration in verse 3 when he says, "All Jews obey the tradition of the Pharisees, do not eat unless they thoroughly wash their hands," thus observing the tradition of the elders. Many others, in addition to Jesus and his disciples, ignored the Pharisaic rule. And looking at other translations of the word defiled hands, in the Greek it can also mean unclean or ordinary hands, but should be eaten with sanctified hands. Jesus is saying that the Pharisees emphasize on ritual purity as that which makes Israel acceptable to God, is ethical behavior. Jesus' main point is clear. What really renders a person unclean in God's sight is what comes out of him, or her words and actions matter. In James, he is writing to the 12 tribes of Israel, asking them to be Torah people, following the laws, and to live as God's holy people. As I read the scriptures weekly, I always seek to figure out how they relate to the world we are living in. So much has occurred. The turmoil is disheartening. Children are returning to school only to have some places to have to shut down, like our grandson's school in Florida, where 11 teachers came down with the virus and hundreds of students are in quarantine. Looking at sanitary conditions and the endless washing of hands is very real in our modern world. Even our 4-year-old great-granddaughter knows to wash her hands many times. Every time we go to a store, I spray the shopping cart with sanitizing spray. Every time we re-enter a car, we use Germ-X. We try to be extra careful, even spraying our homes when a workman enters or leaves. It was disheartening to watch people fleeing Afghanistan, walking through sewage to get to the gate to leave their country, and then many dying because of a suicide bomber, or the people in Haiti trying to shelter from the elements after a dreadful earthquake caused so much devastation. Now we have news of a possible even more destruction in Louisiana, perhaps the worst storm since the 1850s. Some are being evacuated, and some are sheltering in place. Jesus is telling us this day what is important: that God be in our heart and in our words. What is important is not the proper symbolic ways of representing our faith outwardly. I remember when I was up for confirmation, we had to go through a whole week of when to kneel and when to stand. And I'm sure many of you remember our church went kneeling and standing, and you didn't dare get it wrong. That we overlook the deeper demands of our faith by doing good and holding in check that our own selfish desires, so that we overlook the deeper demands of our faith to serve God by doing good, directing our energy toward the welfare of others in our larger community. As James tells us this day, the power of human speech can build up or destroy. How we use our words matter. So let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. James says, be doers of the word, not merely hearers of the world. We all have watched as hearts have been opened to those around the world, and even here at home, experiencing great turmoil. The images of a baby being lifted over barbed wire to the safety of Marines on top of a wall shows humanity at work. The images of many helicopters, both in Afghanistan and Haiti, aiding and rescuing people are powerful. We must seek to live a faithful life, to choose right relations with God and each other, loving God and our neighbors as ourselves. We must choose our words carefully, because words do matter, because they can make a difference in how we relate to each other. Jesus tells us this day to be doers of the word, not merely hearers. By doing so, we can transform our world. Amen.
Okay.